Hey guys, this is Gwydion. I'm doing this video to show you a module conversion I did of a board game called Mapmaker. And I stumbled across this on a Kickstarter and on BoardGameGeek.com, and it looked really interesting. I was looking for something I could play with my daughters, who are 13 and 10, and it didn't take a ton of time to set up. I love all my games that take a lot of time, but I wanted something that I could set up quickly. So the individual who created this, his name is Yin Hua out of China, and I apologize if I butchered your name, but he's a great guy. I've been corresponding with him on Board Game Geek and some of the forums and email, and he was kind enough to let me do this conversion. So I'm going to jump into it. I'm using more core on Fantasy Grounds, so I'm just going to kind of jump right in and try to show you some of what I've done. So I've got a lot of hotkeys on this. Start with the table of contents. So some basics about Mapmaker, of course, conversion notes, and I have some links. Please support him. He goes, his company's called One Page Gaming. So you can reach out to him at demon9t@gmail.com and buy a physical copy of the game. Please do so. I definitely want to support him, and it's great that we have some free versions like this from Mapmaker, but I really want to support him as an author. Game components. So I'm just going to jump in. Let's jump into the setup. So the setup, you basically take the wild map, which I'm going to show you. Looks like this. And then essentially you have 6 dungeons. And these are just, they're only pin links that bring up a blank information. But I'll show you kind of as you get into the game what you do with these. But you need that. You need the dungeon sheet, which is where you do a lot of your work. That's this. This is where you do a lot of your game. And then some event sheets, which are kind of like random encounters. And then you have some rollable tables for those events. And I'll get into those. So we can pick hero sheets, and there are 8 different heroes that all have, as you can imagine, different attributes and what have you, kind of like a lot of adventure games. I did load up a bunch of pre-gens. So when you see this module, you'll see all these pre-gen characters. But I loaded 2 of them. So let's open those, Gwydion and Rob Toohey. So these, I created as best I could the actual character sheets with some rollable attributes. So we can get into those as we get into a turn, but these are all rollable. And you can go to the second page and it actually pulls up an actual hero sheet that's straight out of the PDF of this game. So, all right. So choose a starting player. So in this case, I'm gonna play 2 characters. You can play it solo, but I'm going to show you the 2 character version, and you can also play up to 4 characters. You need dice, which of course we have with Fantasy Grounds. All right, now this is the long version. I'm going to see if I can find the short version. So this is a very detailed walkthrough straight out of the rules that gives you a ton of information. You can certainly go through that, but on the dungeon sheet, I also have a short scenario. So I'm going to say we picked dungeon 1. So one of the things you do that I'll just jump into to show you real quick is you pick dungeon 1. And all you do right now is record the name of the dungeon. So I'm just going to call it Gwyd's Dungeon. Really, really creative. And you don't really need to do much with that right now. That's all you do. Okay, so let's get into this. Record keeping. So what you do to start a turn is you're going to mark a slash typically on the dungeon sheet to show the level you're at. So in our case, and some of these tokens were actually created for someone that created this in Fantasy Grounds for an Italian version name. I believe it's Luca Robocoppa. So I want to give a shout out to him, and I have his credits later as well. But he created this nice token that you can flip or you can rotate. So I'm just using my center mouse wheel to show that now we're in dungeon level 1. Once this gets to 5, this number down here, this would get moved over here, and the dungeon threat goes to a +1. And I'll show you that in a little bit. All right. So that's the journal. It goes up by 1, like I said, every 5 levels. And The next step is you roll to determine encounters. So this is all one-player rules. So let me flip through it to multiplayer rules. So you're going to roll 6d6 and put them randomly on the encounters. And each of these up here represents an encounter. So let me do that. I put together a hotkey, and you guys probably know how to do that with 6 dice. So I'm just going to click that to roll it. All right. So, oh, that's interesting. So what you do is, the game says to put them randomly. What I do is I'm just going to take them in order. And these are also done by Luca. And these are hotkeys that should be in your token module. So if you open your tokens, once you upload this or open this module, you should be able to see this D6 dice bag. So I just hotkeyed these. So what I'm going to do is say, okay, here's a 5. I already put a grid on this so that it'll drop on cleanly. There's 1. So I'm just going to put these in orders 1 through 6. Okay. Oop, picked the wrong one there. Oh, darn it. What am I doing? I need to be down here. 1. Then we got a 6. Then we got another 1, 1. That's really odd. Now, one of the things you'll see, and I'll show you in a second. Okay. So you got them all on here. All right. And then you add the total of all the dice. And if this total, so we know it's 15, is greater than or equal to the boss encounter score, you immediately fight the boss. You can tell the number. Hopefully you can read this, but it starts at 31. So for the first 10 levels, it's going to be at 31. Goes down by 1 every 10 levels until you get to, what is that, like 40th level? And then it goes down by 2 every 5 levels. Till finally, if you get through 50 levels, or 49, I should say, you get to the boss at the 50th level if you don't encounter him beforehand. Okay, so we know we're not going to face the boss. That's fine. Event level check. If you roll exactly 3 dice that were equal to, or sorry, exactly 3 of the same dice. So if you had 3 1s or 3 2s, whatever, but we don't. We have 4, but it has to be equal to 3. But I want to show you what that would look like if we did have an event. So let's just say we only had 3 1s instead of 4. Then I have images here, the sheets, just to show you what they look like, but I created rollable tables. So remember, we selected Dungeon 1. We could have done any of these, but he does have a very specific grid for the events that relate to each dungeon. So we are going to look at Dungeon 1, and then we can click on the rollable table here. And so in this case, it says Stealth Cross the Chasm. All heroes need to resolve this encounter first, then play as normal. So I'm not going to go through that because I want to keep rolling on this, and I don't want this to be too long. But this means that you would have to do a stealth encounter first before you did anything else. But let's just get straight into the encounter. So players go clockwise, starting with the current start player. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Gwydion, who's the fighter. I should know this by now. There we go. And then Rob Toohey, who's the mage. I'm going to put him in the combat tracker just to make sure we track them. And we'll have Gwydion go first, just because. And you can do any of these 5 encounters, or you can select to rest. So I'm gonna flip down just to show you, and obviously you can go through all these rules, but 5 encounter types: monster, which goes against your attack value; trap, where you use your defense value; stealth, use agility; exploration, intelligence, and then treasure, you use luck. So if you go to Gwydion, you can see on the second tab of the character sheet, I put a hot link to the hero sheet. So you can see this is the basic sheet here. I didn't put Gwydion here, but you can use letter tokens if you want and put a name in here maybe. He starts with 11 hit points. So you can see that there are 11 kind of gray boxes here to signify he has 11 health points or hit points. If you look at the first tab of the character sheet, I actually indicated that as well, so you can see it in the combat tracker. You have 12 total spell points. Okay, and that's important because you gain, skill points. I apologize. You gain a skill point every time you win an encounter, and you add to your ability scores. So I'll show how that works too. You have skills, but you only unlock these once you get to the number of skill points that's to the left of the description here. So we don't have any skills until we hit 20 skill points, and all heroes start with 12. Okay. So you can tell that my best values as a fighter are going to be defense and attack. So I get +4 to any roll I have for defense and +3 for attack. So what you'd want to do typically is you most likely are going to look for the lower value numbers, and rest I'll show you how that works. But I'm just going to say, since defense works for trap and monsters high at a 5, I'm going to start against this one, which is a 1. So how to resolve? So first I'm going to have, and I guess you could do it either way, but I'm going to roll the monster's attack first. So I created, there's some pins up here. I created like a normal encounter that you can throw into the combat tracker. Okay, and I've got all the encounter types here. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll, but if you look at this roll, so the trap roll right here, you can see it's 1d6. So you're going to roll 1d6, and then you're going to add whatever the dice is that was dropped on earlier in the session here. So what I'm going to do, just to make this easy, is I'm going to go down to my modifier and say that's a 1 to signify that dice. And then I'm going to say trap encounter roll. So now I've got to beat a 7, and it's kind of nice because it'll show you in the chat, obviously, what the description is. So for me, I use, again, defense, and I coded these to already have the additional modifiers in here. So remember, defense, I had 4. So I'm just going to roll my defense. And I got a 4, so if it's equal to or greater than, I win. So I win that encounter. Then what I would do is I would take this dice off to signify that the next player can't use that and can't use that encounter. But I do get to go to my sheet, and I want to signify, because it changes my attack score, I'm just going to go in here and type a +5, so I know that next time that's all ready to go. The other thing I can do is go to my sheet. And one thing it's probably helpful to do just to visually show you is I also have check marks. I'm hitting Control on my hotkey, and I'm going to drag this up and go ahead and then just shrink it down a bit. Trying to shrink it down, but it's kind of, sometimes you guys know it's kind of hard to drag these. There we go. All right. So those are check marks by Luca as well. So now I have a full, so that's 5, and I get a +1. So I need to go back and say that's actually 6, because I get 5 across +1. So now I have 6 defense. The other thing you want to make sure you mark on is you want to mark that you gained a skill point. So now I have 13. So I know if that gets to 20, I get to unlock a skill, which I put the description in here as well. Okay. And I'm going to shortcut some of this because this video will get too long. But then Rob would do the same thing. So he would go through that same exact. And let's say he's a wizard. So I'm going to say, or actually a mage, not a wizard. We'll go in intelligence, which is treasure. So he's got a 1 here. He's going to go against the 1. So we can use the same attack. You don't necessarily need to go in order here up that I'm showing, but you do switch the order every turn. All right. So I'm going to do the treasure encounter. So the treasure has a 1. So let's put a 1 in the modifier and then roll the treasure encounter. Okay. So that's a 2. So he's already going to beat that because we know that his intelligence, he's already got like 4 modifiers. So that's a 10. So the cool thing with treasure is there's a table here. And so if you win that encounter, you do get to go in. And again, you would want to make sure that you put in your intelligence. I'm going to put a +6 because you go to his sheet. And again, he would actually get, I guess that I shouldn't put a +6. There's a -1 to the combat die. So that might be something you want to track differently, or maybe you do use a +1. It'll work the same as doing it by subtracting from his combat die. But the nice thing is once you beat that treasure encounter, then you can roll on the treasure table. So in this case, I get to add 1 agility or an intelligence skill point. So that's permanent. So that's pretty cool. If I had decided that there was nothing I wanted to do here, you can rest. And rest, you can see up here too. Basically, you do start with this die, and all you do, and I have a table for this too, is you're going to roll a d6, and you're going to add this number to it. So the way I would suggest you do that is simply click on the modifier number here, make it whatever the die number is here, and then you can just roll. So I'm a 5 plus 1 is a 6. So I would regain 1 hit point and 1 skill point. Important to note, you can't go above your starting value. So if I'm already fully healthy, that wouldn't do anything to me. And if I haven't used any skill points, and remember, you don't get to use skill points until you get to at least 20 on your total skill points. All right. What other things to note? So obviously you'll turn this wheel as you go down to another turn. You'll redo that whole turn just like I showed you. When you move over here, so let's say we got through 5, now we're on the 6th. So we're on the 6th turn here. Now you see there's a +1. What that means is when you're on your encounters, then the monster gets a +1. The way I signified that is I'm using my shift key for my hotkeys, but I have a dungeon thread. I can just click on +1 modifier there. And then if I roll and I go back to the encounter again and say I'm going to roll any of the encounters, the dungeon thread adds 1 to everything. So we'll just say the monster encounter. So I roll it, got a 1 + 1 for the dungeon threat. And you're going to do that as you keep going up in levels. If you get to 10th level, so let's say you're on 10th level now, that goes to an elite encounter. So you would have the +1. So I'll hit shift again, +1 for the dungeon threat and +1. I know I have it. Let me go into my modifiers. Here's the +1 for my. Oh, maybe you know what I did? Oh, it's +2. Of course it is. Yeah. So I should just go down here and hit +2. There is no +1. All right. So now you can see it shows 3. And now if I roll my encounter, it's a 4, but I get +1 for the dungeon threat and +2 for the elite encounter. Maybe I'll change that over time so it doesn't show that plus twice. It's just how I describe it. So that's that. So that's pretty cool. And let's see, skill modifiers. So yes, I have the modifiers up here if you ever want to look at them in the modifier section. And I won't show you now, but in another video, I'm going to show you the boss encounter. But in the effects, there are some effects. These are just informational, but I did include them. So you know if you fight a boss and they have an effect on you, you can put these on your character just like you can in any other game. And it's just gonna remind you of what the effect is. All right. Post encounter, you get the bonuses and it tells you kind of how to apply those bonuses. Go back and do it again. So I don't want to go through the boss encounters because I want to keep this video short and we're already at almost 20 minutes. But I will show you that there's a way to select a boss. These are all the bosses. And you can roll on a table to select the boss once that occurs. So let's just roll for someone. Skeleton King. So I click on that and this is their sheet. These are kind of a pictogram showing what their skills are. But I also, if you click on this link up here, I did create an NPC for each of these bosses. So I'll explain in the next video how to use this because it's a little involved, but you've got the Skeleton King, you've got different attributes that he has, skills, and most of these are rollable as well. So let me go past this for a minute. Final record keeping, wild maps. And again, One Page Gaming, please support him. He's really been responsive to me and I really appreciate him letting me do this. I want to bring up the conversion notes real quickly. So again, you'll see his information, Mapmaker rules. This is a hyperlink to a URL. So if you click on that, you can go directly and see all of the rules. So you can see the full rule set. Mapmaker on Board Game Geek, again, that's a link. So if you click on that, you can go to the Mapmaker and you can kind of take a look at the description of Mapmaker, the ratings, There's some forum posts, and yes, I have some forum posts on there. And there's some other files and information that are useful. And finally, let's see. I want to, again, shout out to Robocoppa for the tokens. All the tokens that you saw in here, the cool tracker, all those things were him. So thank you very much to him. And then also Crossell is the one that did a rules synopsis, which is what I'm using to do my little short game entries. So that was very helpful for me as well. Talked about Hot King, the dice coat tokens, and check marks. The check marks were all Robocoppa as well. The effects, NPCs, pre-gens. So again, all the pre-gens in there. And this is the YouTube video I'm referring to, and I'll do a boss one as well. Final thing I would say is Demon9T also has his own YouTube channel, so take a look at that, because he does have how to play through as well, and those are pretty cool. He did a great job. So that's that. Sorry, this was a little bit long, but really fun, interesting game. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will do another video showing you the boss encounters. Until then, hope to see you all on the Fantasy Grounds forums. Thank you.